So today's workshop, we will cover how to set up a VPN and how to get on the Rutgers Amarel cluster, which is our high performance computer, and that will get you ready for the following two machine learning workshops. In terms of VPN setup, in order to get on Amarel, we cannot use the browser version of the VPN, which means you will have to download the Cisco mobility client on your device, either desktop or laptop. And I will show you how to do that. And let me share that as well. Okay, so now I'm sharing my screen. You should see this is what our VPN look like for Rutgers. I will disconnect. You'll see that it has two authentication systems. One is your password, another is called dual action. Your password is the same as your password for NetID. Would be, I'll type in mine. And in terms of dual action, there is actually one mobile app that you need to download called Dual. And once you download that and you have Rutgers VPN set up, it will push you a number, or it's like a secure code every minute-ish, and then just type the code from there. Yeah, and for VPN is vpn.rutgers.edu. This one, if it's your first time set up, you probably need to manually type that in. And once we have our password ready, as if their computing devices were directly connected to the private network. So that's being said, our device is now under the whole Rutgers public network system. And that's what this VPN does. And in order to get on, I will just close all those and show you how to set up from scratch. So I will open a new browser, new window. So the platform that we use to deal with to manipulate and utilizing our high performance computer is called On Demand. It's ondemand.hpc.rutgers.edu. If you just type the first domain name, it should take you to the dashboard. I will copy the name and paste that to the chat. Oh, accidentally hit video. Here is a link to On Demand. And this is a dashboard. So before we go into On Demand, just one quick, let's stop and ask if anyone has any problems with VPN setup. Were you guys able to get behind the VPN? Is it working? Okay, I'll take that as a yes. So again, do follow the VPN instruction setup. Before you set up, I believe you need to submit a request through the Rutgers authentication system. So do follow a few more instructions before we download the app. All right, so here is now we're on demand, which means we're already on Rutgers Amarel high performance computing environment. So here, if we go to files, that would take us to the home directory, and that's my home, which I have the data workshop 1 over here. And one notice is that for this home directory is private, so other people cannot access your file that you saved on under your home directory. And what if you want to test run and utilize the workshop that we're using for today? One option is I do have a Scratch folder that's open to public. And if you want to access all the data sets and materials through there, feel free to once you click home directory. So once you click the file, it will take you to your home, and then you click home and then click this slash over here. It would bring you to the very beginning folder of the MRL. So from here, find a folder called Scratch. Give me 1 sec. Let me refresh. It has spaces sometimes. Okay, so we go to Scratch. Okay, so now we're in the Scratch folder. So every user on MRL, you automatically have 2 folders. One is your home directory. Another folder is called Scratch. I believe this Scratch is more like a Scratch folder is more like a temporary folder that allows you to save files there for a temporary file there for about a few weeks. I don't know the exact time, but it's a temporary folder. So my net ID is ZZ169, and I already uploaded the data set and along with some basic code in there. So I believe for the next 2 workshops, SandKit would use the same data for machine learning, because the data has 2 gags and I believe it was 10 million rows. So it is a very large data. Let me see why it's not letting me open again. Let me refresh the page. Okay, so now we're in the folder. And you see there is under my Scratch folder, there's one called workshop, and we go in, and those are the data set that I've uploaded. And the data set we're using is parking violations from 2016 and 2017. I do have data from 18 and 19 as well. I just haven't uploaded. Data can be found on Kaggle. So as you can see, those 2 data set are a very large. One is 2 gag and one is 194 gag. And once we get onto R and Python surface, and we'll see how many rows do we have. So a lot of people are familiar with. So that's how you do command on one on-demand platform. So we can also access the cluster through a shell or terminal. So here it's basically the same thing as your terminal. If I'll pull out, type in here first. So here is type in your password for your net ID. So that connect us to the high performance computer as well, and we can do the command over here. For example, we want to see what folders do we have in here. We do ls, and same thing as terminal. I'll pull out my terminal. The 1 sec, that WebEx floating bar is literally blocking me from search. I don't know why I can't search in here. Okay, I'm just gonna go find terminal myself. Weird. I will stop sharing for a second. That could be an issue. And then I'll share again once I got terminal out. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay. Okay, so I believe there was an issue with sharing screen while trying to do a search on Mac for apps. It doesn't mean do the search. So now, yeah, anyways, I got the terminal out. So that's a Mac terminal. You don't have to necessarily get on demand. And the way you log in is you SH into it. So your username would be the one over here. Your net ID at hostname at rutgers.edu. Okay, let me see if I can pass. There's no. Let's go here. Easy. And then now it would ask you for a password. And again, type in the password for your net ID. And here is another way to get on our Rutgers Amarel. And then here are a few commands we can use. For example, see what folders we have. And we want to see data workshop 1 and see what's inside a folder. As we can see, we have those files in this folder. And yeah, you can do some like give up authentication or delete files, use shell command. And I'm not going to cover details into this for today, but that's another way for it to log into Amarel. Okay, so I'll get out from terminal. And so go back to on demand. If we want, there is an option called My Interactive Sessions. I'll delete this so we can set one up from beginning. So as we can see over here, we have a lot of options for servers. Today I will introduce Jupyter Notebook 3 and RStudio Server. So Jupyter Notebook 2 is for Python 2. That's why I'll use Jupyter Notebook 3. And for RStudio for teaching is that when you're hosting a workshop and stuff, we can use that. But for private use, it's unnecessary. And today we don't have a reservation, so I'll just connect to a basic server. And here, you can set up the version of R you want to use and number of hours that you need to use. And then the course as well. If your data is huge, do put more course, but sometimes you need to allocate with the other users. So here I put 12, but it's probably not necessary. Sometimes I'd recommend about 6 to 8 be enough for at least for two gigs size of database. Okay, so we now just wait for a few seconds for it to connect to the server. Okay, so now we successfully connected. So we got this error because sometimes there are, okay, I guess I'll go back to terminal and see it. We do have hidden files in the folder that I didn't remove. If you have, for example, you had last sessions, let me see. Okay. So as we see that we do have some hidden files over here. And if you get that error, you can try to delete those hidden files that you don't need from the terminal, but we can just ignore it for now. So this is a basic like the R surface. Well, it shows the work that I've done already, but if you log in for the first time, it's probably just a blank R page that allows you to start from beginning. And here, this is the directory to our one of our files. I will again share in the chat. Again, the Scratch. So the Scratch folder is again the Scratch folder is open to public. So do feel free to use the same directory, or you can download the dataset and upload your dataset on your for your own project database to your own home directory. Again, for here you just need to put your directory on Amarel, and so here let's run it. So here is the install packages. It would take a while, so I'm not going to run it today. I'll just show the data. Okay, so now we view. So it would take about a minute or two to process because this data set is very large. Okay, let's wait for a few minutes for it to pop up. Guess it's still loading. Yeah, my experience with it usually takes about 2 to 3 minutes for the data to load into R. Okay, finally it's loaded in. Okay, so here is what our data set looks like. I'm not gonna scrolling down because it has millions of lines. So we have the number of the ticket and plate ID, registration date, plate type, issue date, blah blah blah. So we got all those attributions in this data set. And what we want, and here are some basic commands that we can do in R. I'm not going to go too deep about it. So for example, if we wanted to get the summary of the data set, then we can just do the summary and then the name of the data. So here, let's see. I think it would take a while to load. So here it returns again, it would take a while for summary to come out. But okay, cool. Now it's loaded again because it's such a huge data set. It would take a while to load. So here is a summary of summary. It's a numerical summary, so that would show you the minimum number of each attribute. But again, for our attributes, we don't really have numerical data. It's more like a non-numerical data, so qualitative data. So here it's meaningless to show the minimum and maximum because they're not numbers. But yeah, just gave you a general overview of what summary looks like. And sometimes if our data set, for example, this one, we have 43 different attributes. So here the codename command allows us to see what attributes we have in our data set. And then here we can also view the structure of the data. Could not find Glimpse. Okay, so because Glimpse is under the package on Tidyverse, and I did not install it earlier because again, then it would take us a few more minutes to install everything. Okay, I guess it's installed, and then let's see, test again if Glimpse works. Object my data not. Oh, right. So my bad. It's not my data. It's called parking ticket. I named it parking ticket. Okay. So this gives you a different overview of the data set in terms of it filtered data based on like what options we have uh, for on by category and attributes, and then we can see that we have uh about 10 million rows, I guess. If I got it wrong, don't. It's just a lot of. It just again, it's a large data set. Okay, so I did. So here, if we want to print values for plate ID in the data, if we just want to see this specific attributes, and we can just do the name of the data set and then $sign and then the name of the column. All right, so that's about, I'm not going to, again, go too deep into different operations in R. You, again, can do whatever command you want to do here. I just, today I'll just show you how to import your data set into Amarel. So that, even we waited for a few minutes today, but import such a large data set on your local device may take, again, significantly longer. And that's a whole reason that why we're using the high performance computer. Okay, so once we're done with R, and let's show how to use Jupyter Notebooks, aka Python here in our high performance computer. And I will delete this session over here and then create a new session. So here, I guess we'll only need 1 hour, and I do 8 nodes, Jupyter Notebook 3. And now let's wait for a second for it to connect to the server. Okay, great. So now it's connected, and then let's click and it will take us to Jupyter. And again, it will lead us to our home page, and then we can just do the data workshop one. And I already had one called IPNY. So yeah, so I will, let me see if I can delete those. Um, so I already had the coding here. Oh, wait, so here, this directory would be, I would change it to our Scratch directory so that everyone could have access to it. Home directory is not open to public. Okay, now let's run it. Again, it would take a few seconds to load probably. It's still loading. Let's wait for a few more minutes. Oh, well, I guess the nods I gave it's not large. So earlier I gave our program one node, one core. Okay, that's definitely not enough. Sorry, let's go back and then create another session. That's because I did not give enough computing power for that. Oh, I didn't even notice what to do. I think personal, yeah. So I would use this one for now because that gives me more option to set the memory. We don't have reservation here. And let's see if let us to do so. I'll give 12 cores. It's a bad name. It's called parking ticket. And hopefully this time it will load. Yeah, we're gonna be patient and wait for a few minutes for it. Oh yeah, finally it loaded. All right, so now we can see that's the same data set that we had earlier. We just loaded uh, to Python instead of Anaconda Python instead of var here, and then we can see that same amount of rows. I don't even know how many is that, but again, it's a large number. And there are a few basic options that run over here. We can see height and tail, because we use Panda environment over here. We want to see the first few or last few rows. So we can do data file head or data file tail. I only did head over here. So we can see the default 5 rows out of the entire data set. And just like I showed in R, we want to display all the column names that we have, as we have 43 different attributes. So here is print data file dot columns command in pandas that would return all the column names. And if we want to see how many data rows we have, then we can just do data file shape, and it will return the number of rows and the number of columns. So we can see we have, again, so many rows and then 43 attributes of columns. So along with the data set, again, we can get some basic information if the data set use the datafile.info command. And here it just tells you what the data types are for different attributes, and then how many storage is being used to process this data set. And we see that the storage would be 3.5 gigabits. So that's a lot of storage, and it's usually not enough for us to process it on our desktop device. It doesn't have enough computing power. And that's why it's essential for us to use this high performance computing. And the reason that we got an error the first time was I actually kind of glad that we got an error was because I didn't put enough core, aka no computing power to it. All right, so here we all can also get a summary of statistics with numerical data using describe. And again, we don't really have a lot of numerical data here. So even they are numerical, it's usually just plate number and the violation code. So it's not really the numbers that we can calculate the max, mean, standard deviation out of. So it's kind of, looks weird here, but don't worry too much about it. If you have a very numerical data set and just know what those attributes are returned, what attributes would be returned from describe function. And here, if we want to only we want to only see the registration vehicles that happen in New Jersey, like we want to have the registration state equals to New York, then we can just do data file and registration state is New York. And this command, I'll run it again. It actually takes a little bit slower than I expected because it should be very fast. Okay, it's relatively fast for such a large amount of data. So here we set the condition that registration state is New York. So here we got all the data for with the registration state is New York City. And then here is also, it will return the index number of our rows, which would be very helpful in terms of data processing. And if we want to look at certain columns in the data frame, for example, we have 43 attributes. We only want to see 2 or 3 of them and build some basic comparison. Then we can do plate ID, registration state, and vehicle year. And you can put in whichever attributes you want to see over here. And then instead of printing out the whole data, I just want to see the first 10 rows of data over here. That's very straightforward. And then if we want to focus on certain rows, what we can do is we can just do the command of the index number. So here we print the row of the 10th row of 200 row. And again, keep in mind that the row number starts from 0. The index number in Python always starts from 0. So your first data line has the index number of 0. Okay, so another option we can do is we want to see how many numbers of tickets occurred by vehicle year. So we can sort our data by vehicle year and then do a group by. So that allows us to, it's super weird. I don't know why there are some years that's like in the future, but I think that's the issue with the data set because we downloaded from Kaggle. But yeah, so that allows us to see the number that we have, the tickets number we have each year by the year number. All right, so that's a quick overview about how to log into Amarel and then do your programming from there in terms of R and Python in Jupyter Notebook and a kind of environment. So yeah, so again, if you have any questions, let me know. And then good luck with the future 2 workshops with Suncat using the machine learning. So I believe he'll be using the same data set. So I'll tell him to try to keep all the data files in one folder. Okay, so yeah, that's about it for today's workshop. It's very relatively short and straightforward. It's just about the setup. So I'll stop sharing my screen and you feel free to sign off. Thank you.